Before we begin, let's take a moment to highlight a core value we all share across our industry: safety. Just a few quick housekeeping notes. In the event of an emergency, please follow instructions from the staff and exit through the doors clearly marked with the exit sign and blinking right now. Kindly switch off or silence your mobile devices. Please note that this session is streamed and recorded. During the Q&A, simply raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you. And for those active on social media, the official event hashtag is #EPCA59. We invite you to join the conversation. Finally, we would like to remind everyone of our EPCA do's and don'ts. As you're all aware, we must refrain from discussing any sensitive market information. Compliance with competition law is not just expected, it's one of EPCA's core values. And now, without further ado,
welcome. It's an honor to be here. I'm Ryan Chilcote. I spent about a quarter century at CNN and Bloomberg Television covering energy markets and pretty much everything under the sun that finance is interested in. Just a quick word about this gathering. The EPCA's first annual meeting was in 1967. That was, of course, a very different time. This city, Berlin, was still living, of course, under the wall's shadow. But it was also a year with moments of light, like when, for example, the merger treaty was concluded, something that many would argue was a milestone in Europe's path to integration. Since then, this event, for the last 59 years, brought to you by the EPCA, has served as a source of light for your industry. And so it's an intellectual pleasure for me to be with you and be part of this, something that has lasted so long. I hope you all enjoyed lunch, but not so much that you're now getting ready to nod off, because we are going to have pop quizzes over the next hour and a half at unspecified times. That's a joke. I see you're all awake and skipped lunch. That's good to know. The purpose of this session is to discuss resilience and the decarbonization of supply chains for chemicals. I think if anyone in the audience needed to be reminded about the need for resilience, you can just think about it, not just even in a professional sense, but in our daily lives. My day yesterday, for example, I started in London. I got on the tube. The tube all of a sudden got to a station and decided to go back the way it had come from. I got out, ordered an Uber, which I'm used to coming instantaneously, took 30 minutes to arrive. I went to the airport, my flight was delayed. I got on the plane halfway through the flight attendants informed me the reason why my flight had been delayed was because of ransomware attacks, cybersecurity attacks on the airlines and airports in Europe. Hardly settling information when you're in the middle of a flight. Then I got here, and of course, the road was closed, the fast road, I should say, from the airport to the hotel. And finally, I left my phone in the Uber and had to use the Uber app on my computer to find my phone. So, this is all trivial. Why am I telling you this? Because that little trivial example of my annoying day yesterday is, of course, happening on a much more epic scale when it comes to the petrochemicals industry and when it comes to logistics and global supply chains. The people that you're about to hear from, the sponsors of this panel, 11% of global trade passes through their hands. It is difficult to imagine that kind of scale. So we're going to start with a presentation from Kai Olschner. Kai is DP World's Global Vice President for Supply Chain Engineering, or I might say their Chief Solution Provider in my vernacular. And then we're going to have a panel exploring strategy, operations, and policy. So please join me in welcoming Kai up here on stage. Kai, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Same from my side. I skipped lunch, so I'm looking forward to have a good one after this session. But before, I would like to give you a little bit details about how we see resilient logistics and supply chains. As you all know, in chemicals these days, volatility is no longer a kind of cloudy, rainy day. It's the climate we operate in here daily, causing constant stress and pressure and how to adapt. However, growth, the good news is, hasn't vanished, has been fragmented all over the world, globally. However, again, in regards to Europe, vanished could be seen as a valid observation for sure. Energy costs, increasing bureaucracy, regulations, working capital pressure are rewriting the cost of serving demand. But customers, our customers who are paying our salaries, they still want to have the goods in time. They want to have a speedy delivery on time. They ask for more transparency and, of course, lower emissions. This is a pretty tough equation, isn't it? In this world, reliability becomes here the growth strategy. The motto, thrive through turbulent times. This is something really difficult here, and being reliable, when you can promise and keep service levels, you protect your wins, you protect your markets, and you can grow into markets where your competitors haven't been before. Today, I will show how vertical integration based on assets, data, and orchestration, acting as one holistic approach, proves how you can maintain business, how you can develop business, and to see business in a more stable, reliable way. The next major supply chain disruptions, as we have had, or I can't remember when the times were not turbulent. Since COVID, every day something is popping up. But we can't forecast the exact date of the next disruption, but we can measure exposure for sure and design for a fast recovery. I ask my customers often, do this simple test. Is the plan of your supply chain strategy, is it really valid? Does it really work when something happened? Or do you need to have a next plan B to maintain what you have and to be sure that you deliver as promised? In the chemical industry, it differs. The operating principle is constant, pre-engineer, alternative corridors you have to focus on, pre-clear compliant nodes, and to make switching mode or route or decision, not a crisis. Growth follows those who can reroute in hours with confidence instead of chasing the optimum for weeks or months. You have to switch immediately your supply chain strategy, or you have to act with a little forecast. The world is changing in many different ways. And our industry is a fascinating one because it's linked on the one hand to geopolitical, macroeconomic, but also climate-oriented things. And of course, the whole regulations which are torturing our business every day in different countries and regions in this world. However, chemicals, as I have discussed with my colleagues just before the session, in the prep session, yes, chemical industry is linked to every vertical on this planet. Don't forget, immobility means automotive, agriculture, healthcare, consumer, all these. There is the chemical industry involved. And when those value chains pivot, chemical industry feels it first. Immediately. The result is multivariable environment, policy shocks, redirect flows, water levels and weather constraints, inland routes. Here in Germany, we feel that the chemical center here in Central Europe at the Rhine River is impacted by droughts every year, but more and more. And this is not just VUCA. This is the structural, and this is the currently painful. And while we are talking that, and Don't worry, I will not only talk about a kind of, will not design a doomsday scenario today for you, but we have to see what's going on, are the geopolitical risks. I've touched the regulations, but tariffs. This is one of the major topics. Our customers we are in touch with today and yesterday, this is really what they are focusing on. Corridor tensions are redrawing lanes in real time from one day to another. Outsourcing, nearshoring, friendshoring, all the notes I've taken here. Now the United States, the new Section 301 actions have raised the tariff rates to strategic categories. The verticals I've mentioned before are impacted. Electric vehicles imports with tariffs of more than 100% in the United States. You will not see, by the way, Chinese electric vehicles in the United States because they are banned. And now also other areas like aluminium, batteries, semiconductors, selected steel, solar components, all those commodities are impacted, but always the chemical industry as well. But don't think that only the United States at the moment are on a rise. It's also the European Union with its regulations. According to the WTO, the regulations have risen during the last 25 years by 38%. So how difficult this is, and we need to react. So it's a reality which happens. And by the way, the carbon border adjustment mechanism, something new here in the EU, European Union here, that moves from the transitional reporting phase, and it's going live by January 1st. Is your supply chain ready for that? And yeah, we have also to take care and about the other geopolitical risks, like the conflicts on this planet. The Suez Channel has been closed. Now the ships has to go through the Cape of Good Hope around Africa. Takes longer period to get the goods here. You have to manage your inventory levels, something completely different. But not only there, the Suez Channel with the Houthi conflict. Now it's also the conflicts next door, Ukraine I'm talking about. But not only Ukraine, according to the International Red Cross, just right now, more than 110 conflicts are happening right now on this planet. And the number will go up, according to the Geneva Academy, who came up with other predictions. So other impacts on our supply chains. And yes, don't forget the increasing impact of the climate change, droughts, thunderstorms, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, all of that is impacting our supply chains, but gives also other opportunities, like new routes to come up because of climate change going via the polar ocean around Russia to Asia instead. And yeah, fragmentation of global growth. In the United States, we still experience high growth of business. In China, a declining growth. So it's a little bit, yeah, we will see where it goes. But high growth definitely in India, a new market, and stagnation in Europe, whereas here in Germany, we have a recession to go through. So it's a fragmented market more and more. And we have to look to new markets. And we as a service provider in logistics and supply chain engineering myself, we have to find the new end-to-end solutions for our customers. The economic uncertainty is coming up more and more. Higher rates, energy volatility, reprice every ton of cargo moved. And every day of inventory held is a cost. So when I talk to my customers, the supply chain leaders and logistics, I say, hey, by the way, where is your CFO? He should be also in our meetings, because every day of inventory held is cost and is impacting the working capital day by day. And not only that, our governmental debt loads at background noise is planning as well. Now, yesterday, we have found out, or we have heard, that France has a debt load of more than 120% of GDP. That's massive, isn't it? And it's increasing. Germany is investing another billion into infrastructure and also filling the gaps of its economy as well. So, but this is not the moment for fragile networks. We need to build supply chain networks which are stable, working, and reliable, end to end. The winners move, my bad. So this is the moment to engineer dwell time discipline, build capacity, but also capabilities in our teams and supply chains. Yeah, also talking about disruptions. I like this picture with his hand up for port congestions, weather events, but also protests and labor impacts we have and facing all over the planet right now. Increasing costs, but also availability of labor force is in some regions a real topic in here. And yeah, the lesson is here simple. Design out handovers, fewer interfaces in your supply chain mean fewer failure points. And with integrated nodes and harmonized SOPs, you can overcome those impacts as well. And meanwhile, your customers, our customers, are not lowering the bar. They're still raising it by any means because our customers are paying our salary, at least mine do. Customers expect a higher OTIF, on time and full KPI, shorter lead times, reliable, lower emissions, and total transparency. They want reliable answers on simple questions. Where is my product? It's not the need where the container just right now is on the ocean, but when does the container arrive? And by the way, I want to know in detail every purchase order on my container as well. Do you have an overview about that? I wonder sometimes how many blue chip companies on all industries I'm in touch with still don't have those necessary information to steer its logistics and supply chains strategies. So given all this context, you need also to ask how ready is your network and your supply chain for that? Are you prepared for this kind of challenge to come up? Preparedness is visible, time to reroute measured in hours, visibility beyond tier 1 suppliers. That includes not only your suppliers, but also your service partners, and going beyond. Again, this phrase end-to-end is a very common phrase we use within DP world, but it explains definitely where we are coming from. And we are saying from factories floor to customer's door. And this is what we want to achieve out of everything out of one hand. But let's have a look, logistics at a turning point for chemicals. What does that mean? I was talking about fragmented markets. Yes, we are talking also about fragmented models because they are too slow for compounding risks. Chemicals needs integrated physical rails, ports, inland terminals, routes, something really existing. I had a session recently also in a discussion panel here talking with customers, and they were talking about the great tools they have in hand and also their plans to have. Say, this is great, but what if something happened? Is there something real you can count on? You can switch from A to B in a minute. Do you have a plan C in place in case of? Yeah, that was difficult. So therefore, you need to integrate your supply chain to something really visible, something really existing. And if this translates into reliability, then it's great. And here I have an idea. This is our network. A global network with more than 560 business units globally. We are now based in 75 countries, acting with 115,000 people, and why I'm saying it might be 120,000, and acting as a global service provider, transporting and managing more than 102 million TEU containers a year. And when Ryan said 11% of global trade is touching our terminals, so we are in touch with. Don't think it's only the cargo itself. It's also the data behind. So we have also the data of those cargo who's going there. What can you do with this data? You can predict, you can analyze, you can find new network routes, you can deal with a little bit AI approach to go the extra mile. And this is what we want to make use of course, and this is what we are doing every day. But that footprint didn't happen by accident. It reflects a deliberate evolution. DP World, since 1972, has developed from a local port operator based in Dubai into today a global, one of the biggest logistics service provider worldwide. A local port operator in Dubai, the company has started there in this little village and say, hey, let's build a port. Port Rashid at that time. Okay, and while we are doing that, let's put a couple of warehouses next door. Nobody has shown up. Okay, what can we do to fill it? So at that time in the 70s and the 80s, we went to the tech customers in Japan and made some advertisement. Hey, make use of that. Make use of this start of this network, of this asset. And if you don't want, you can leave again. They acted as a business company. Business makers, business people instead of logistics first. The companies came and never left. And that was the base set for something bigger. And now has grown from a regional port operator with ports in Jebel Ali, which is one of the biggest ports on this planet right now, more to a global port operator with more than 70 ports and terminals all over the globe. And while doing that, the company has thought, hey, let's do that end to end. Not only offer port logistics, but let's make this tool, this powerful tool of having assets, ports, and let's build a network around that. So developed into an end-to-end supply chain logistics service provider, offering freight forwarding services, contract logistics services, and all kind of. I will come into detail in a second. For chemical industry, what does that mean? We have seven sub-verticals identified to be specialized in. So we have built capabilities. In the chemical industry, we are active for more than 20 years, especially here in Europe. Our network is really decent. I'm sure my colleagues in the panel discussion will touch that. But to tell you here right now, special chemicals, agrochemicals, and fertilizer, plastics, polymers are already the biggest one, are touching more than 80% of the general chemical business globally these days. And then, of course, paints and coatings, explosives, refined oil products, or crude oil and natural gas, it's a part of that. Here we have built capacity and capability, be it in real assets, ready terminals, but also more than 20 ready chemical-ready warehouses here only in Europe, but also globally. We build solutions and networks around our customers. So with DP World here, you can talk a little bit more than only logistics. We build around the solutions and supply chain solutions together with you on a global level. And what kind of global level? Yes, we are talking about freight forwarding, contract logistics like warehousing, free trade zones, market access platform, trade finance solutions, and multimodal connectivity, trade finance solutions. To support your working capital, we offer financing solutions to support your working capital in markets where it might become difficult for you. But also to help you in access to markets like in Africa, where our network is quite decent and set up is difficult for some companies. You can jump on. We deliver those services for you. So we are acting as distributors as well. Our USP, vertical integration along the supply chain. Vertical integration is an accountability model. When we own and orchestrate critical nodes, ports, rail, and inland parks, forwarding and freight management services, industrial zones which we operate, what is the result? Deterministic windows can be possible. So we can influence on an end-to-end base the delivery and how you handle the goods of your cargo. Event-level tracking becomes standard, and standardized SOPs reduce variance across borders based on our tailor-made solutions. So what I would say, don't treat only logistics as a cost center in this time. Yeah? Treat, please, logistics as a backbone of your strategy. Logistics sometimes steers your production as well. And this is the one-stop shop of DP World. So all what I've said before and more you see here, I don't want to go through in very detail, but reduced lead times fits with your customer demands. Reliability opens up new markets and new growth for your customers. Again, a reason why end-to-end logistics solutions with reliable partners are important and underlines your growth ambition. Enhance control about your supply chain, reducing disruptions, impacts, and significantly. Well, I have a little example. I'm talking right now to a battery producer who is supplying cobalt from Congo and distributing it all over the place to Canada or even to China to supply their plants. And while we have discussed there, I say, hey, guy, man, how do you steer your supply chain? How do you manage your logistics daily? How do you do that? Yeah, I leave it to my suppliers. Say, well, that could be a little bit difficult because Congo is maybe not the safest place on this planet. What is your plan B if? And by the way, let's start from the beginning. When you purchase your goods, what are your Incoterms saying? Did you even thought about that? So what is your plan B? Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, then I find something else. Well, yeah, but you need to supply your plants. The people are there. Yeah? If you have a shortcut or a stop of your production supply, then you have an issue. Yes, you are right. Okay, then I have somebody in Australia. Okay, you can jump on Australia, you purchase from Australia. How do you manage your logistics out of Australia then? Yeah, I need a partner. Bingo. So I need a network, an asset-based. So good thing is DP World managed all the ports and terminals in Australia so far and also has a very good intermodal network there. And then from there you can distribute wherever you want into this world. But that has shown the importance of logistics to steer production, but also to become more resilient to the things happening on this planet. And yes, it's a perfect storm for chemicals. Coming back to the things I've said before, geopolitical instability, trade restrictions, regulatory landscape, bureaucracy everywhere, and supply chain volatility, fluctuating inventory levels post-COVID. I just want to mention every day your goods are in inventory, cost you money. Don't forget that. Invite your CFOs more often to your supply chain meetings and also with your partners, because some of them have great ideas to improve that topic as well. So, in your growth potential with DP World, value creation potential, yes, you have one partner. You have one spine of data, as I've said, end to end. You have that, you can manage it, you see it, and then you can manage it. One single source of truth, lead time compresses because infrastructure and orchestration are aligned. You have a control tower taking care of your things. Costs become more predictable. Disruptions hit harder on paper than in practice. And in chemicals, the expectation becomes standardized. This is another very powerful tool. Standardized supply chains, standardized SOPs and actions which are acting like a machine. This is what you need to have. And having a global team of supply chain designers, like I am, there you meet your goals definitely for business growth. And your growth potential with DP World. Oops, my bad. A single platform, real-time visibility, and seamless API and ERP connectivity. We are talking a lot about digital transformation within DP World. AI is not only a common phrase. For example, Our terminal operation system, our TOS systems, they are connected globally. Then, if a container arrives at the terminal in Indonesia and is going to head to Europe, we know exactly where this container is. And in case of, we can process this container faster with all the information you need to have. And if our machine tells you if you need to reroute or you need to order a faster way to get the goods into Europe when something is going to happen. Inventory optimization, I've touched that topic. Another example, I'm in touch now with a chemical customer here out of Europe. They have mass-producing products out of Turkey, distributing all over the world, but in bulk. So bulk, also I had to learn, is inflexible, is expensive. Inventory levels, sales also difficult because you need to sell first and then able to deliver and find the spot, the big ships. But there are tensions, hey, let's do containerize it. Because yes, it might be expensive, a little bit more expensive by ton, but at the end it's cheaper because you have the end-to-end approach. You can deliver according to customers' needs. And here the customer has decided, okay, DP World, please, let's design a warehouse where I can consolidate my cargo. You produce the packaging, you develop the packaging, you containerize it, you put it on a ship, you distribute it all over the place, and you bring it to my end customer, wherever it is on this world. Especially in Africa, but also in India, which is a very interesting market for us. And yes, we can, and yes, we do, and we love to do these things. And while we are doing that, we help this company also with this working capital, because we finance a part of that as well. Future outlook, strengthening resilience through vertical integration. Investments, expansion, yes, we are from Dubai. You might say, yeah, you guys have enough money. No, we are business people. We think not only logistics, we think also business-oriented solutions. And you can discuss with us other things, not only logistics, because maybe some things are coming together and we can design something together, always an open ear for. And then you come back to your one-stop shop solution as well. But resilience, I wanted to come back with that. This is a very, very important thing. Resilience, without that, you're lost. I want to emphasize what I've said before. And with a sustainable and future environment and service, this doesn't fly anywhere either. We want to become net zero by 2050. This is our commitment as a company. We have a couple of great ideas and actions in our network happening. In the UK, for example, if you jump from our terminal, from our port of London Gateway, and you want to distribute your goods within the UK and you go intermodal, we give you a discount. We are able to develop water supply for our customers who are growers in Morocco. We help them to generate water out of the air to have a better output in the harvest. We support by having reefer cargo to reduce reefer cargo, the temperature-controlled cargo, to minus 15 degrees instead of minus 17, which saves energy and then also CO2. So there are many, many ideas and actions a global network can deliver. And last but not least, market access and trade finance. Another example why we are different as DP World. We offer services to get into markets where you are not right now and you want to be. And also we support your finance needs. So having that said, normally I could say we are a perfect match. In chemical logistics, definitely. My colleagues and I, we will have now a panel discussions. Ryan will come up and introduce that for us, I'm sure. And yeah, I'm really happy to have a lot of questions from you and to talk with you about supply chain, because that's my passion. And DP World, I'm working for this company with pride and really looking forward to have you soon here with your questions. Thank you very much.
If you go ahead and take the middle seat there, the hot seat, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much. Ready for your first pop quiz? I see you are. That's fantastic. So let's bring in our panel now to test some of the ideas we just heard across strategy, operations, and policy. And let me begin by inviting Marcus Canis, who's DP World's Global Senior Vice President and Vertical Industry Lead for Chemicals. Marcus, thank you very much. You are second from the left as you face the stage there, right next to Kai. Next up, Hans van den Bos, Senior Director for Road Freight in Europe. Thank you very much. You are to the right of Kai. And last but not least, allow me to invite up here on stage Jana Popkostova from the European Center for Energy and Geopolitical Analysis. There you are. Thank you very much, Jana. And I myself will also sit down. Kai, if we could sort of, that was fantastic. Really appreciate it. Glad I'm not in the cobalt business. And although DRC is also a complicated place when it comes to regulations.
Does it work?
If we could, if you could summarize that really, just in 30 seconds, of all of the decisions that chemical leaders face, prioritize, what is the single most important thing I need to do right now in 2025 before I attack the other things you were talking about?
Thanks, Ryan, for this question. As I've said before, see it end to end on a global level. The markets aren't just around here. It's became fragmented. You need to design your supply chains and seeing end to end on a global level. This is the first start you need to look at. We believe that only single transportation just for mass products will not answer the growth plans of your company just right now. And it's a general mindset, not a detailed answer, general mindset. Please change that logistics is just a cost center. Make it one as your strategic backbone development of your company.
Thank you very much, Kai. Marcus, if I could turn to you. You're in charge of strategy at DP World when it comes to the chemicals industry and servicing it. So let's imagine that you are a leader in the chemicals industry. What should you be demanding of your logistics partners to de-risk your supply chain?
Thank you. Does it work?
It does.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Ryan. I would start with, not echo my colleague Kai and his presentation, but I would start with the topic of the session, turbulence. Turbulence is clearly challenges. Challenges are opportunities, and opportunities always seen that we can change something. And change something is very clear. We have to go into partnership, strategic partnership. That's something where I do see as to start with going really into global and as well as regional partnerships, talk to each other and understand each other's complexity of the supply chain and talk about value chain. So that's one element out of it. The second element, which I would clearly see as a very important part, is to have a kind of visibility of your supply chain. And visibility clearly does not mean I do know and I have enough information where my products are and when they should arrive. Visibility means really that we have to be nowadays looking into the supply chains, that we have to change our supply chain from a, let's say, from a situation which happens, whatever type of interruption the supply chain give, into another solution, or even looking into what could be a kind of goal from a sustainability point of view, that we are able to reduce as well these type of and achieve goals which the company is jointly working for when it comes to sustainability and CO2 emission opportunity and rerouting. So we do have, as you listen to Kai, we do have the information, the details, from an AI standpoint to really go into, can we reroute because of something happens across a geopolitical issue comes up. So these type of information are, for me, mandatory. And on the other side, as I already said, AI, this is something which will, and we already talk about AI and we talk about visibility, that's the real important trigger which brings us forward. And as partners, going into partnership, this is something where we clearly have to work together as I said, strategic partnership to understand each other's supply and value chain and the customer's requirements on the other side.
Thank you very much. Jana, I want to bring you into the conversation. You have a very different hat. You're looking at risk all of the time, looking at how companies can mitigate risk through advocacy work, through understanding those risks. How do you see the risks, and what can companies, whether they're in the logistics industry, servicing the chemical leaders or chemical leaders themselves, what can they do to address those risks?
Thank you, Ray, and it's a really pleasure to join the discussion at such a critical juncture for the industry. Also in a panel of seasoned industry experts who are the pinnacle of expertise when it comes to logistics, and in front of an audience that we must be aware is, and will be really creating the foundations of our society and the way we live. And I think this is extremely important to underline at the beginning. So thank you for your work and thank you for your service to society. So at the outstart, I think it's important to realize that we live in a reality where carbon policy, particularly in Europe, is becoming trade policy. So energy forces, geopolitical disruption, climate and cyber, they all converge. And from my vantage point of somebody who works really on industry and policy on everyday basis, the petrochemicals are really at the vortex of all these forces because they're at the heart of the energy transition. And we discussed this before the panel, that when I make this statement outside of this room, because I'm purely aware that in this room people are cognizant about this reality. So when I make this statement outside of this room, there's eyebrows being raised. People are really emotional when you say that actually petrochemicals are foundational for the energy transition. But we need to really be aware that wind turbines, solar panels, fuel cells, hydrogen pipelines, even basic energy efficiency measures such as insulation all rely on petrochemical-derived products. And even the IEA is suggesting that one of the few engines of growth for the oil sector for the next several decades would be petrochemicals, not despite of, but because of the energy transition. So this is something very important for us to keep repeating and to articulating a little bit better outside of this room so that society is a bit more cognizant about why this industry is important and how we need to engage with this industry, not to scapegoat, but rather create solutions together. And I think this is actually one of the risks, how to engage better with people outside of this room and outside of this particular industry. So, and this indispensability of the petrochemical industry actually makes logistics all the more vital, because society cannot transition to the way of living that we aspire to have, a sustainable way of living, where we care about planet, people, society, ecosystems, and we manage to uplift the global society out of poverty, which is still massively existent in certain parts of the world, if we don't move molecules in the most cost-efficient, carbon-efficient, transparent, and engaged manner. So this is moving logistics, and I think this was actually flagrantly really obvious in the presentation of Kay. So logistics becomes today not a background infrastructure or a cost center, as you mentioned, Kai, but it's becoming the front line of competitiveness and resilience for the petrochemical industry. So there should be more cooperation and cross-fertilization of engaging in how to solve all of the different polycrisis environment that we speak about. And then just to finish off, looking into the EU perspective. So we all know that Europe is not a growth engine. So Europe is really, the role of Europe is to create standards and export those standards on circularity, carbon reporting, so on and so forth. So the CBAM, the ETS, the CSRD are actually doing something very important. They transform carbon from a reporting requirement into financial liability. And I think this is actually very important. So logistics is also important in this context because in the CSRD, 60 to 90% actually of Scope 3 emissions stays in logistics. So basically, it would become a key factor in terms of transitioning the industry, but also showing proof of how the industry decarbonizes. And this is critical for the petrochemical industry. So really finishing off with the fact that logistics today would become this bridge of credibility, but also strategic differentiator when it comes to how to be competitive, not only within the EU environment, but globally, because at the end of the day, this is a global business.
Very good comment you have made, Jana. I just want to emphasize logistics. Yes, it's a part of it, but you have to see it end to end. Don't focus on one single capability. See it really end to end. You have to the value stream in sustainability, value stream mapping and sustainability end to end from factories floor to customer door. When you see that, the impact for resilient but also sustainable solutions are much bigger.
Jan, if I could just ask you one quick thing. You mentioned, how petrochemicals are at the heart of the energy transition and how important they are to Europe. You're in Brussels. Do you think the policymakers there understand that? Because I think perhaps many of the people in the room would struggle to believe that they do.
I think there is an increasing cognizance within the EU Executive Commission, Parliament, but also in member states, that actually for too long our focus has been purely on sustainability and really having this big ambition on how to reduce emissions. And today, for the past 2 years, and especially in the context of the Draghi report, and we just celebrated 1-year anniversary of the report last week, and there was big announcements. I think that people today are actually really realistic that we need to advance forward with the carbon regulation. This is important and it's non-negotiable. So the Green Deal would continue, despite of the fact that people feel a bit edgy about this, and there is a lot of voices trying to stop this progress. But today we have the Clean Industrial Deal, which is precisely designed to match the competitiveness challenge and the decarbonization challenge. So I think when you speak with Commission executives this year, I think the context is completely different than speaking to them 2 years ago. Just because in the matter of the last only 5 years, we start to realize that there is a massive, I would not call it deindustrialization, but still there is a big risk that key industries would be departing from Europe, because we know that we cannot compete on cost, and actually the cost environment would be structurally changed from now onwards, so there would be no more any cheap energy prices in the EU compared to the US, compared to the Gulf. There is also the cognizance that now China is becoming a little bit more self-sufficient, so there is this ambition to autarky, so they really regionalize their supply chains, and this is going to have impact on us as well. But also their industry is becoming more and more competitive and more innovative. And just to add to that, it was interesting to read, there was a report 2 or 3 years ago about the patenting in terms of clean energy technologies, including for decarbonization of heavy industry. And it's something that I work extensively on, decarbonization of steel, cement, aluminum. And if we look in the patents, actually the majority of clean energy technology patents are being designed in the EU. So the EU is holding those patents. And then something happens once actually those technologies are being designed and deployed. It's not in the EU. And this is a kind of a non-brainer, how it happens that actually we have the innovation, but we don't know how to implement this innovation within our own boundaries. And I think this is something that today the executive is trying to grapple with. So it's not only the European Commission, but also member states, where they try to think about what should I do locally to not only bolster my national or European champions, as we call them, but also reduce the barriers internally in the internal market. And I think one of the key issues that was really omnipresent in the Draghi report was the fact that actually the internal market, we create more barriers than any US tariff would place on our market. I think there was, the IMF has estimated that the internal barriers are adding 123% cost. And this is, again, something interesting just because we have the single market, but actually it's not so well integrated. If we look into, again, energy grids and modernization of energy infrastructure is something that I really work on for the past more than 5 years, extensively. So we don't have an energy market which is purely integrated. There is the ambition. Today, we had this ambition of having 10 to 15% interconnection target between member states. It's still not achieved. And I think this is critical for heavy industry, but also for petrochemicals, for logistics as well, because it's not an academic debate, it's actually a competitiveness issue. If you don't have access to really reliable electricity, which is flowing freely across the continent, then in any case you will not be competitive. So I think now with the new grid package, actually the EU is trying to solve some of those barriers. So going back to the question, yes, there is more and more understanding now that these industries are absolutely critical for the EU, not only for competitiveness, for resilience, but for everything else, sustainability, defense, autonomy. We speak so much about strategic autonomy. You cannot have strategic autonomy if you don't have actually your key industries thriving and being able to export outside the continent.
Thank you. Hans, let's move in a little bit different direction. Talk about execution. You're in charge of road freight in Europe, so you're quite literally where the rubber meets the road. When you look at the chemical supply chains, where is the breakdown? Kind of just lay out, you know, in the real world where things go awry and how you design supply chains to prevent that from happening, or at least reduce it.
Well, in the beginning, of course, it's all about the handovers, the handoffs. There were between geographies, between modes, and between partners. There, the risks of the supply chain exist, and that is what DP World tries to mitigate. Are these risks? The visibility drops in that kind of situation. Compliance risks increase, and performance increases. So performance risk increase. So how DP World mitigates that is by asset control. So our strategy is asset right, as we call it, but we try to have as much as possible control on the, let's say, the crucial part of the supply chain. That's why we own warehouses. That's why we own port terminals, inland terminals, and intermodal fleet. That is how we try to get this under control. That is the main issue. But on the other hand, and that is what practice is all about, it's also about people. So trained people, experienced people are crucial in these processes, just also to be flexible to handle the disruptions what Kai was talking about in the world. I'm the person of practice. It's not a theory. You have to deal with that, and that's why we need experienced people and keep them on board, because that is a big challenge nowadays, to keep young people on board and to attract young people. And that is what I would say one of our strengths is, to attract young people, because we have a situation in which we grow. We have a company with a clear vision and a clear strategy, and that is what is very important. And additionally, we are not only looking at the P&L of the coming 3 months. It's all about strategic vision on how the world develops, and that is what we are dealing with.
Thank you very much. Marcus, I want to come to you for a second here. We heard from Kai earlier about how much cost, particularly here in Europe, is an issue and obviously a focus. So how do partnerships move from focusing on just that, which is so crucial obviously here in Europe, to focusing on issues like decarbonization and resilience, which we're discussing here?
I would say go away from the transactional cost thinking into a more long-term relationship as well as a long-term strategy, and look more into a solution which at the end brings all the partners together and bring a kind of avoidance of cost elements in it. Going more into that as a reality, it's a little bit like an engine, like an artificial information system who is constantly learning on information we feed to such a machine. It's the same with us. And just taking the words what was given from Hans, that our people and the investment into people is investing into know-how. Know-how is on both sides. It's on the customer side and it's on the partner supplier side. And we are developing those know-how competence centers and building up a kind of competence center with a know-how. And only if we are sitting together with the customer and exchanging one-to-one all those information, we all are able to develop a solution which at the end fits perfectly into an end-to-end type of approach where the winning party are both, because it's a happy customer who gets his product on time and in the right quantity. And that's exactly where we're trying to go. Only to look on the transaction from a cost standpoint is not anymore the future supply chain development and strategy which I would support going forward.
Thank you, Kai. I wanted to ask you.
May I add something? The word resilience has been taken a few times today. What you can do additionally, beside the normal transactional and cost-effective solutions, is dual routing, for example, or bonded inventory, which could be financed partly by DP World, or on-site containerization. Just simple additional solutions that are on the shelf as soon as the disruption exists. So not to be proactive, not react, but be proactive for the benefit of our customers.
Maybe to add to that one only short, where we have then taken exactly that, we have developed a digital twin. And the digital twin allows us then really to go much more into those details which just were explained. And there we have all those intelligence which we do need, that our customer and we are getting to a real solution, which at the end is really reflecting the reality and the situation from all type of influences which we heard in the presentation.
Add to that for me. So digital twins, how else can technology, artificial intelligence, I mean, you can't go to an industry gathering nowadays without people discussing how AI can help them get ahead. So how can AI help specifically, other than say digital twins, in these issues of de-risking and addressing the issue of decarbonization and the need to account for it?
Yeah, so AI is a wide topic, of course. Everybody is talking about that. AI means that we are able to integrate our systems to get to have a speedy answer to questions to come up with, to taking care to analyze data much quicker. I have a customer right now which has provided us with a dump of data. It's unbelievable. Yeah? I don't know how many gigabytes, terabytes he has provided us with data. To all kinds of transportation, values, sizes, volumes going from A to B, C to X, unbelievable. So it took us with our Analyze tool, which is AI oriented, to analyze these dump of data within a short period of time, within hours. Normally, I would have queued up different laptops with MS Access or Excel or whatever, and hundreds of people looking at it. And please, my Excel times are really, long time ago when I was really able to program Excel here. But here it was in India with a customer here, and after just a couple of hours and discussing with the system itself how it works, to come up with a network design solution. Yeah, really cool in India, really going to the little shops, and not only there, reaching out in the neighboring countries like Bangladesh, and also reaching into GCC. And that was so impressive to see. That was from the design phase, how to make use of. However, in operations, and that's the world of Hans, of course, every day, is AI can also be beneficial, being operational strong, bringing resilience to operations chain, and being faster. I think speed is definitely an answer for that, especially in days where we need, in these times, where we need to increase our capabilities, but missing on the other hand also labor, and then good skilled staff. That's a good answer, to have a bot in place, to have an eye in place who helps you in dealing with data.
If I can just add to that, I think absolutely IA today is indispensable to any type of operations. But then looking into petrochemicals and logistics, I think one important avenue of action would be predictive monitoring and providing optionality to customers in terms of the route, both in terms of cost, but also carbon, so that actually customers will be able to see site to site the price and the carbon and make informed choices. And IA can be extremely important there because with predictive monitoring, using meteorology data as well, we can actually anticipate where potential climate shocks would appear. What is the potentiality of conflict in certain cases? We have done last year a project about the Caspian, so looking into historical data and then predicting at what moment in time potentially a conflict could appear here or there and how we can adjust to this. So having this kind of multiple scenarios being designed with the help of AI would be very important, and then hiring actually people who are foresight analysts, futurists, who are able to actually look into these predictions and then maybe rank them in terms of probability and then advise clients on how to manage this risk.
These are the dimensions you need also in the future to add on, for sure. It's not only the climate change when the hurricane is popping up, but what if another conflict is popping up on the planet where the routes are going through right now? And we all read the newspapers what is going to happen or might happen, but what is the result? And those dimensions, be it geopolitical ones, be it also the climate change, you need to put in then to simulate. A digital twin can help for sure. A network model tool can do that as well. So it's a multi-dimensional view, variable view, how to design your supply chains in the future.
I'd just like to remind you all, please, that in 2 seconds, that we are open to questions. So if you do have a question, just raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you, and you can go ahead and direct your question to anyone you'd like. So, okay, we have a question over here. While we're getting a microphone to this gentleman, please, Marcus, you speak, and then
Yes.
we'll go to the question.
Just want to say,
Yeah.
the example you have raised when you started your journey yesterday is
Yes.
exactly one of those examples where we are talking about product. So if we have those information, we can reroute, we can optimize. You have made your own decision because you were on your own.
Yes.
But if that is the customer type of situation, there must be somebody who's really able to give you in seconds a kind of solution and a kind of opportunity and plan that opportunity and reroute. And that's exactly on your example, which you opened up the forum today.
Yeah, I called my wife, but it was more moaning that it was a sort of practical solution orientated conversation. Please, sir, your question. Please identify yourself and direct your question to who you would like it to ask it to. I think it might be working. Go ahead.
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. So thank you all. Tom Brown from ICIS. And just kind of an open question, really. But Ryan mentioned at the start that the ransomware attacks, which interfered with transportation for a lot of people coming into Berlin. And I've read, and spoken to a few analysts and consultants who see kind of a cyber attack that knocks out a major node in global supply chains being kind of almost a certainty at this point, at some point in the future. And so I guess, in terms of like the series of black swan events we've had for the last few years, what can companies and supply chain specialists do to prepare for like a major outage, and how that may be something which certainly happens?
Yeah, thank you for this question. Very interesting. And every day we experience events like this. There's also another example which happens, which I can bring here. I mean, it takes you only 8 hours with a cargo plane from Frankfurt Airport to Chicago, but it takes you 48 hours to release the cargo at Chicago. So because of the regulations and stuff. But the answer is, yes, you can't be 100% sure that some events like that happened. what you have to, you can expose your measurements against it. Having backup scenarios in place, clear SOPs, what if. You will never be able to compensate 100%, but to have a clear structured disaster pathway. And for the other example I came up with the Chicago thing, it's not only AI and technology, it's some simple things. And here also Jana can speak because he's working closely to Brussels, for example, how to reduce regulations, to streamline them, to become easier and straightforward, and to standardize operations in this way.
And maybe adding to that, that's one of those reasons when I started how important strategic partnerships are. Because with strategic partnerships, you can and have already these type of scenarios which are somehow not only consulting, but you are constantly discussing with your partners what, if, how. And you see exactly the reaction time. That can be a 24/7, that can be around the world type of solution. So those are scenarios which are really flexible in a way, and you can define upfront, not that you are having a surprise if something happens, and then you first need to think, oh, what does that really mean? You already have this type of information, you do know each other, you do know all the value chains which are impacted in a way.
Believe it or not, control towers. It's not like in NASA, or in Blue Origin at the moment when the rocket is going up, a lot of people sitting in front of screens. No, we have that in logistics as well. We have a room with specialists looking at dashboards and see which container or truck is somewhere. I think, Hans, you have a lot of them also under your responsibility. And this is also in logistics a daily routine.
So Hans, let's go back down to where the rubber meets the road. Cybersecurity, clearly important. What are the key elements of operational excellence in chemical logistics today? And where does cybersecurity and the role of that kind of fit into the most important things?
I would say after what we discussed up to now, it's all about flexibility, have additional parallel or simultaneous solutions, but operational excellence is still within being operating in the chemical industry. It's all about safety and compliance. That is the major, and it sounds a little bit dull maybe, but at the end of the day, it's all about safety and compliance, and there is no compromise in that. It's non-negotiable, and of course it costs money, but at the end of the day, that is crucial. Real-time visibility is also a very important point when we talk about operational excellence. And being cost competitive, you also need standardization, and that is a little bit the balance. Being resilient and flexible on one side, and to have standardized systems on the other side to be able to scale up and so on. And that's why you have to train your people in both sides, to be resilient, to have solutions, alternatives, but also being able to work with the standardized systems. That are the main issues.
I just wanted to add on the cyber, also the question coming from this gentleman. So when the attack happened on the 3 airports across Europe, so the only company that was not affected was apparently British Airways. Why? Because they were the only ones who apparently had an alternative system. So this is what was reported in BBC. So for me, when reading that, I was kind of really find it mind-boggling that only one company smoothly closed the link which was the ransomware happened, and managed to switch quickly to the other channel which was put in place, which goes back to all the points made by the three of you, how important it is to have those systems already in place in a predictive manner. So when something happens, when attack strikes or climate disaster happens somewhere, you automatically, without any hesitation or panic, manage to switch and to provide the best possible service to customers. And then it goes to the training, to the human capital, to the people who are able to actually design and develop those systems.
We have just a few more minutes, so if you have a question, please raise your hand so we can get a microphone to you. And Jana, before I let you go, I have a question that I was asked before this that I want to make sure you get, which is, because a lot of people are interested in this, how are EU regulations like CBAM or CBAM and CSRD reshaping supply chain requirements?
How they do?
How are they reshaping requirements when it comes to?
As I mentioned at the very beginning, I think all of those regulations, they point towards the fact that carbon now becomes really part of the trade and market realities within the EU. So we are moving towards the end of the transitional phase. So from next year, it would become a formal financial requirement. Apparently today, this morning, in the news, there were some rumors that potentially it would be delayed or changed a little bit to provide more flexibility to industry. So this is something to be changed. But they reshape supply chains through a very fundamental way. To a certain extent, probably the risk would be that we would have somehow a bifurcation of global supply chain. So clean products would come to the EU, and then more dirty products would go to places where there is not this carbon barrier and carbon tariff at the border. And I think this is something that we need to be very vigilant about. And actually, I think the Commission starts to work around this, how to make sure that actually this would not be this bifurcation. Because then if we have the bifurcation of markets, and we already start to have this in the oil, the LNG will be probably the next stage, where we will have a kind of distressed cargoes coming out of the Arctic LNG to one market environment and then others to the other. So I think it's very, we need increased vigilance on this bifurcation, because this would impact the entire industry through insurance risk, liability. We all know about the ghost traders, and they're kind of like really the disasters on the sea, which eventually, when disaster happens, it would impact the entire industry. It would not be only for the shadow fleet that would bear the cost of that, because it's also a reputational damage that is there and that needs to be considered. And I think I worked for a shipping company a few years back, and this was one of the key issues, that actually the reputation and the image of the industry is really tarnished by what's happening with those shadow fleets and ghost tankers that are very old. Oil disasters can happen. So I think it's one of those issues that are extremely important for the industry to consider, and they're coming also to a certain extent through the EU regulation, because imposing these high tariffs here and the high carbon requirement can potentially lead to this kind of two-way street to a certain extent.
Marcus, a question to you. So perhaps more than ever, the EPCA over these, as we were talking, 59 years, is becoming more and more kind of globally focused, as sort of starting obviously very European-centric. Both the EPCA and obviously DP World very globally orientated. So beyond Europe, what regional perspectives matter most for global chemical supply chains, in your view?
Definitely, China is still on the rise, but let's say, even for China, they are a little bit backwards, but even by far on a rise, which is not comparable to the rest of the world. Then definitely Americas is somehow getting still traction, are still on a rise, which are quite important. And I would say the new kids on the blocks will come out of the GCC region. So really that area will become more and more important, as well as there are in the world as a strategic hub. And especially in the petrochemical world, they do have a significant type of importance and opportunity there. And we are more and more getting into these type of discussions now. How can that region be a kind of center of excellence from a global perspective seen?
Which is so interesting, because for so many years, everyone's thought of the GCC as really the producers when it comes to petrochemicals, hydrocarbons, and yet there's this big shift underway.
Right, because They are now starting investing into logistics as DP World. That was one of the reasons, as we have learned earlier today, to become a clear end-to-end logistic provider. So it's not only we, it's really the world seeing that logistics is something from a global trade, where that area of the world is really playing quite an important role in the future. That's why huge investments are done in that region, and we will see in a couple of years that they are quite advanced compared to other regions.
And finally, last question, last word. The most important takeaway from this conversation is what?
I would summarize it in a sentence like, as I said earlier, strategic partnership, aligning goals, doing risk management, not when everything is already happened, have already a kind of partnership where you can share those type of challenges in a way and turn them early enough in opportunities which can be released and which can be implemented as a fast track.
Looking like a true steward of strategy. Thank you very much. Marcus, Kai, Hans, Jana, thank you very much. Please join me in giving our panelists a big round of applause. Feel free to come up and ambush them now here. I know that you guys are going to probably be around the DP World stand 7, I believe. And thank you so much for paying such good attention to us right after lunch. I didn't see anyone sleeping. I'm happy about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.